It's really getting the people excited about drinking better things, about knowing where what they're drinking comes from.
What are the cool kids drinking?
We're using a liqueur of green pepper called Ancho Reyes Verde, which is a new product from Ancho Reyes.
You just made that up.
No, it's a real one. It took me digging, but it's there.
Pappy Van Winkle, worth the money?
Worth the money, yeah. It's a status thing. If you can find it, my girlfriend who's opening her own bar is working her ass off, excuse my French.
Hold on, this is business and bourbon. There's no, we speak French. I will not hold any of my employees back from a better opportunity, never. Who am I to say that, to hold you back from something that's going to be better for you and your family. Welcome to Business and Bourbon, where we have real talk with real people. I'm Ronell Richards, the creator and host of Business and Bourbon. If you haven't listened to our show before, boy, you are in for a treat today, and you've chosen a great one to listen to. On today's show, I invite my own personal Spirit Sensei. We've got Clarke Anderson on the show today. Clarke is a beverage manager for Ford Fry restaurants in Atlanta and beyond. They're actually have launched national restaurants now. They are really hot and killing it out there. Fantastic drinks, fantastic food, best quality. These guys are killing it. I admire what they do. So I brought in Clarke to do a little whiskey education. So he's going to do some education on whiskey and some other spirits and give you guys a little insight on what it's like to attend one of my Business and Bourbon live events. See, Clarke actually does the whiskey education piece at some of my events here in the Atlanta area. So I brought Clarke in and we talked a little bit about that. And we also talk about some of the challenges that face employers that are in industries that have a little bit of a higher attrition rate, like the food service industry. He gave some great tips for how they retain employees and kind of their whole philosophy in hiring, which I found fascinating. So with that said, it's time to go, guys. Grab your glass, grab your cup, grab your mug, whatever it is that you like to drink out of. I want you to pour your very favorite beverage in there, pull your chair up, and enjoy a little business and bourbon. Hey guys, welcome back to Business and Bourbon. As always, I am your host, Ronell Richards, the creator of Business and Bourbon. Another beautiful day here in the city of Atlanta. I am sitting in King and Duke. As you guys know, this is where it goes down. I'm at King and Duke. I'm looking outside. I'm seeing all this great commerce. I'm seeing all this great energy, the heart of business in Atlanta. And that's what I like to surround myself with. So if you haven't listened to our show before, let me go ahead and set the tone for you. We like to record live here at King and Duke where we have some great energy around us. There are people that are doing business. You're going to hear some clinking of some glasses. Those are some deals getting done. You're going to hear some people enjoying themselves because I want you guys to really get an insight on what it's like to sit down with a business professional or entrepreneur and just have some real talk. That's what we're about. Real talk, real business. Today, I got a treat for you, and I'm really excited about this one. Today, I have brought in my sensei, the master of everything spirits. I brought in Clarke Anderson. Clarke, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, Ronell. How are you?
I'm awesome, dude. So pleased and really stoked to have you on the show today. Clarke, I've already introduced you as my sensei and the master of all things spirit. Why don't you tell the audience what your job is?
I'm beverage manager for Ford Fry restaurants in Buckhead on the east side of Atlanta, and I'm a certified sommelier. I've been working in beer, wine, spirits in the beverage world in Atlanta for almost 10 years now. I started as a server for Ford Fry in 2011, and before that I worked for Fogo de Chão, the Brazilian steakhouse on Piedmont that you might know. And I worked for McCormick and Schmick's, the kind of old school seafood restaurant back in the early 2000s, just when I was leaving college. And I just thrive off the restaurant energy and the service, the hospitality of it, and really enjoy pleasing people. And early on, I learned that wine and spirits and selling better experiences was the thing that brought me more money and more pleasure from it.
Money's not bad.
Yeah. So it was money first. When I was a young man, it was the money and selling bigger wines and kind of the ego of it that got me into it. But Now it's the education. It's driving the younger set, the next generation of wine people.
We're going to talk about that because
so now it's really getting the people excited about drinking better things, about knowing where what they're drinking comes from, and about digging deeper.
So speaking of drinking, we always have to start the show off with talking about what are we drinking. Clarke, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking an old-fashioned, but this is an old-fashioned made with an agave distillate from way far south in Mexico, in Oaxaca. So this is a mezcal old-fashioned. We're using chocolate bitters, so also something that could be considered Southern Mexican. And we're serving it stirred, of course, with a giant clarified ice cube. So really,
what did I tell you?
There.
Isn't that, man, I just got smarter just listening to this guy. So Clarke, what am I drinking? It's called... This is something that's new on your menu. The countryside. I don't. And
Cross Country Snow.
There we go.
Yeah. So this is a cocktail I made a couple years ago with my favorite winter citrus, which is the white grapefruit from Florida. So we make a cordial from the white grapefruit. We use, depending on who's making it, we'll use gin or tequila. Right now it's on the menu with gin and white grapefruit. And we're using, so last year we used a serrano pepper. And it made it a little too spicy.
Yeah.
So this year we're using a liqueur of green pepper called Ancho Reyes Verde, which is a new product from Ancho Reyes.
You just made that up.
No, it's a real one. It took me digging, but it's there. So with a little lemon, white grapefruit never has quite enough acid to balance the cocktail for me, so we add a little bit of lemon juice with the cordial.
So I am not a gin drinker, and I am loving this drink. It's never kind of been my thing, right? But... this is delicious.
It's the original infused vodka. Everybody's drinking flavored vodkas. Like botanical vodka is gin. Literally is gin.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So, as I'm sitting here, hold on, sip time. Sorry, guys. It's too good. All right, so I wanted to bring you on, first of all, because you make me feel smarter. Everyone thinks that I'm the whiskey guy, and I know some stuff. But like I said, sensei over here. So I'm coming to you for the PhD level knowledge. So first question I've got to ask you, and I know my audience wants to know, what is your favorite spirit? What do you drink? What are the cool kids drinking? And guys, if you could see this guy, let me tell you something. He looks exactly like you would expect him to. He's got like the movie star chin. He's got the flowing hair and the glasses, like really the coolest guy. He's the cool kid. So what are the cool kids drinking?
So these days the sommelier set, when we're not drinking wine, we're either drinking sour beer or agave spirits, or mezcal, tequila that has a sense of place. So the reason these things are so good is because you can trace them back to where they came from, who made them, and the transparency is very high, which is something for spirits that's not very common. So the craft spirits that we like to promote, the craft things that we like to do, have a great connection between the people who made them and how they're made, and the people who are serving them, and we can really increase the experience of our guest by bringing all three of those factors together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So another question that I have, because being the business and bourbon guy, I frequently get the Kentucky folks. Love you guys. You guys are awesome. But I get the Kentucky folks say, it's not bourbon if it's not made in Kentucky. What do you got to say about that?
Well, I mean, bourbon is a place in Kentucky, but I think that the style bourbon with high corn and new oak is more overriding than that place. So it's important for bourbon to maintain those two factors, and once you cross that threshold of predominantly corn and aged in brand new barrels, you're creating an identity for it, and that's really what they're going for. Building the name of bourbon outside of Kentucky, I think, is a good thing for them, and they should probably be okay with it.
So speak to that. Educate my audience a little bit. What is a bourbon?
There's only a couple of rules to make bourbon, and it just has to be more than 51% corn, and it has to be aged in brand new barrel, an American oak barrel. Other than that, there are some upgrades to bourbon, like straight bourbon or bonded bourbon, that you could put on that label as like an age statement or a quality statement. But the basics of bourbon are just those two things. And once you've met those, no matter where it's from, whether it's made in Kentucky or Indiana or Montana or Georgia, you can still call it bourbon.
So, as a bourbon drinker, one of the most confusing things, Clarke, is the marketing. I don't sometimes now I have educated myself, so I understand it a little bit more. Can we speak to that a little bit? What's straight? What's single barrel? What is, like, we've got all of these. I think, is it Jim Beam that has the Devil's Cut now, or someone that has the Devil's Cut?
So most of it's marketing. The terms straight and bonded do mean something, but they mean something related to how the spirit is put in the barrel, at what strength, and then at what strength it's bottled.
Okay.
So not to get too geeky, but straight and bonded were created as tax layers.
Mm-hmm.
So you could charge more money, like the government could charge more money depending on how strong the whiskey in the bottle was, or how strong the whiskey in the barrel was. So now a lot of the other stuff like Devil's Cut and Angel Share and different
Angel
barrel
Share,
finishes, like Angel's Envy bourbon is finished in one type of barrel and the Reyes finished in another type of barrel. These are not only flavor components, but they're kind of like marketing components as well. This kind of takes its cues from when spirits really started to be imported into the U.S. If you take rum, gold rum or aged rum was seen as higher quality, when in actuality it might not have been. It was just colored with caramel, maybe. Tequila, same way. Reposado and Añejo tequila weren't really a thing in Mexico until we started bringing our barrels down there and aging their spirits in our barrels and creating these new layers of quality for which we could charge more money. Maybe some original liquor entrepreneurs getting into how to market things and create more layers of quality or perceived quality.
So it's more marketing than anything, right?
It creates flavor components, right? So a spirit aged in oak for 2 years is going to have more flavor components. If I'm making a stirred cocktail with tequila and some vermouth and bitters, and I want to have some of those toasty notes from barrel in that cocktail, then I will use an Añejo or Reposado tequila. But if I'm going to make a margarita, it might be better to have Blanco, really clean and light flavors in my cocktail.
Okay.
So, they all serve a purpose, but originally, it was marketing.
So, next question. I've got a lot of, obviously, bourbon drinkers and whiskey drinkers, and I think that the most popular name in bourbon, it's kind of like the Rolex of bourbon. And Rolex is a brand that kind of carries this aura, right? And this reputation. But for those of us that were in the jewelry industry, watchmaking industry, know that it's not the highest quality watch. But you can't replace the aura that comes with Rolex. Yeah. Okay, so that said, Pappy Van Winkle, worth the money?
Worth the money, yeah. It's a status thing. I think that to say that something that tastes that good is not worth the money, if you can find it.
All right, full disclosure, you guys are selling that for $120 an ounce, right? I'm just kidding. Do you guys
when we can get it, right? So the whole setup with Pappy is that they want you to sell other products to be able to sell Pappy.
Okay.
We don't really, as a group of restaurants, we stand up for not playing those games. A lot of people do, and that's fine. But we get a little bit of Pappy. We like to make people feel really good about drinking it and not feel like they spent a whole lot of money. So with that one bottle of Pappy, I will generally pour those 12 2-ounce pours to 12 unsuspecting people on me.
Are you serious?
And make their day.
I can be an unsuspecting person.
You might be that person if you come to King and Duke, right? So there was this table of two guys. It was one of their birthday. One guy I knew and one guy I had never seen before, and they were with their wives, and I poured it for them, and they didn't really know what it was, but I think they started to realize what it was when they tasted it, and made their night for sure. And it's those kind of things that I would much rather use my Pappy for good.
That's pretty
evil.
Cool. So these people, their palates were that astute that they're kind of like
maybe not, but maybe it was their first taste of really good whiskey. And I mean, when I first tasted Pappy, when it wasn't really a big thing and I could get bottles of it, it was something that really made me excited about drinking more good whiskey. And that was when Pappy was really good back then. So it's not always about collecting those unicorns. It's sometimes about turning someone on to something they never even, like, blowing their mind.
So, what the moral of the story here, guys, is show up to King and Duke, and you might get some Pappy. I'm not promising
Pappy lottery.
The Pappy lottery, that's what we'll call it. Show up here, you might get some random Pappy. Now, full disclosure, I haven't got any yet, but we're going to work on that. Matter of fact, Clarke, you're the guy here, and from what I understand, you create all the drinks that are on the menu, right?
I have a ninja, a cocktail ninja here at King and Duke,
Okay.
and we have these. My title's beverage manager, right? So my boss is the beverage director, and then at each restaurant we have a beverage supervisor who is like the ninja who keeps eyes on everything because I can't be everywhere, right?
Yep.
So Tiana, my superstar here,
What's
does
up,
most
Tiana?
of the cocktail,
What's up, Tiana?
most of
Shout
the
out.
cocktail execution.
Yes.
But I've been making the cocktails here at King and Duke for many years.
Let's get to the point. I want the point is, can a brother get a business and bourbon cocktail on the menu? I'm just saying. You're the guy that I think can kind of make that happen.
I make things happen. So,
all right. So you, Clarke, you oversee King and Duke, St. Cecilia as well, right?
And then 246 in Decatur. It's a little Italian place where I first came into the fold. Here is our second restaurant at Ford Fry Restaurants. And it's just like my heart. It's the greatest little getaway.
That's awesome.
In Decatur. And then a little oysterette, we call it, a tiny oyster bar with a cocktail den underneath called Beetle Cat, which is an undercover beast of a restaurant. It's so much fun on the weekends, and it's a completely different animal during the week. Nice little spot.
So, guys, if you're not here in Atlanta or the Southeast, whatever, like Ford Fry Restaurants is killing it, like written up in every major magazine, and I mean they're just killing it. So I'm super stoked that they've allowed us the ability to come in here and partner with them and do some great stuff. We've done our Business and Bourbon live from St. Cecilia. We do the podcast here at King and Duke, and it's been super awesome. And Clarke, thank you for coming in, because Clarke actually, guys, giving you a little full disclosure, Clarke does the education piece for us at our Business and Bourbon when we do it at St. Cecilia, and he's been awesome. And as you guys can tell, he is an encyclopedia of all things spirit. So that's kind of what we bring for our live event. So if you have not been to our live event, you are missing out. Do know that we are currently traveling it, so we're going to a ton of different cities. I think next is, I don't know what next is. We got like 10 cities. So we will be in your neck of the woods. Make sure you check it out. Unfortunately, Clarke will not be traveling with us unless I can twist his arm and make him come. But we will try to have a Clarke clone at the events that are outside of Atlanta. But if you're in Atlanta, man, you want to make sure you're here for Business and Bourbon when Clarke is helping us out and doing that great education piece. All right, so Clarke, people they listen to Business and Bourbon because they want to hear real talk, right? So we bring people in. We talk about what you do because I want to know. It's interesting to me, but we also want to know, like, the real dope. What's going on in your business? And one of the things that intrigues me about your industry, and I think it's something that a lot of people can identify with, like, first of all, you work a lot of hours, and then you work weird hours, right? Like the hours where, a lot of people are off because the busiest times in your restaurants are going to be when people are off, right? The dinner time and all that. How do you balance your real life? The work-life balance for you. Is there such a thing? Let's talk about that.
So the best balance for me is in the summer. I have my girlfriend and her son. We all cohabitate, and we've been together many years. Mm-hmm. So we'll never get married. So she's my partner and her son.
That's what's up.
I call him my roommate. He's 13. And so the best is in the summer when he's kind of doing his own thing, and our schedules can kind of flow together. But when he's in school and we're all getting up really early, and my girlfriend, who's opening her own bar, is working her ass off, excuse my French.
Hold on, this is Business and Bourbon. We speak French.
Okay, good. So working really hard to make that happen, it's a struggle, but it's an evolution. So we've both been in the restaurant industry for our entire careers, and we know more than anything that the restaurant is about adapting, and whatever it throws at you next, you're going to handle, whether it be a table of 8 who all has special orders, or a table of all kids. Whether the schedule calls for this today or something else completely different tomorrow, we'll make it happen. So there's lots of 10 o'clock dinners, there's lots of early mornings, and we make it happen.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that can identify with that. I mean, whether anyone out there that's high achieving and trying to high achieve is putting a lot of hours in, and sometimes that is, at the expense of time they could be spending with their family. How do we work in, or their loved ones? How do we work in quality time, with the people that we care the most about, and still succeed, still, do what we need to do at the job? And I mean, you've got a lot of responsibility. So from what I'm understanding, you correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you get it in where you can get it in.
Exactly. Like, we're an hour here, an hour there. A walk with the dog is quality time.
Absolutely.
A ride in the car is sometimes the quality time. A moment in the park is quality time. There are grocery shopping trips that are quality time.
Yeah.
But you have to take every moment for what it is. And, we have lots of small, hard conversations so that we don't have to have big, hard conversations as a couple and as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And so we communicate really well. We learned that very quickly that if we gave the kid a phone and texted him about things we needed, he would remember them a little better, and like put them in writing. So he's getting a lot better, and we're all getting a lot better at what we do every day. The house and the yard we're renters in Decatur, which is a good place to be a renter at this time.
Awesome place.
So our house and our yard are our pride and joy.
Mm-hmm.
We are our favorite, we hope, tenant our landlord has ever had.
Mm-hmm.
So we take a lot of pride in that. And my girlfriend's business is going to rock. I know it. So I'm proud of her.
That's awesome. I want to make sure and hang out there. So let me know. Okay. So what I'm hearing from you and what works for you is it's about quality. It's not quantity, it's quality. So the time that we spend, the time that you have with your family, you're really making sure that you're making the best use of it, because I think there are a lot of people out there. There are people out there that aren't as busy as us, right? But they're sitting at home and their kids over there on the other side, and they're doing they're living separate lives, right? Like, not getting that. And don't get me wrong, guys. Listen, we all have. If you got, I got teenagers, so like I know what that's like. My son, he's in his room, he does his thing, but I make it a point to have times where we just vibe, man, where we get together, we either go have a meal or just hang out.
Yeah.
And I do this thing. I started it last year, in fact. We try to go out whenever I'm in town, unless I'm not in town. We'll do a Wednesday night meal, right? We'll go out someplace. No tech. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
No tech. So all the phones, everything stay in the car. So that's what works for me, and I think that's something that a lot of people out there are challenged with, man, because we work more hours in this country than I think 90% of the working world, right? There's somebody that's beating us. Who is it? I don't know. It's one of those European countries.
We are fortunate enough to have a lot of support from the school that Max goes to. So they had a low media, no screens in the school, mm-hmm. and so that carries over into the house. So there's no, he has a phone, but he's not on it all the time, and there's no video games or movies on a regular night. So those things are treated as a reward and as something that. It's also something that keeps us conscious of our screen time and our media intake. So definitely at meals, definitely during family time, keep all our phones stacked on one another, and whoever goes for it first is
the loser.
Loses.
Cool. Hey, one other thing. I mean, here's something that's also interesting to me. You guys are about to have a bar in the family, a new bar, right?
Yeah, it's like another kid.
So, talk to us a little bit about the challenge. I talk a lot about, and my employees and folks that have worked for me and how much I've learned from them and some of the challenges and difficulties, because a lot of people that are listening to the podcast are either in management positions or they're entrepreneurs, and they're learning, how do I deal with employees? I think you kind of have. There's some unique challenges, I think, to your industry. I know for me, like, we had a lot of, in the sales world, there's a lot of attrition, right? And I can imagine there's a certain amount of attrition for you too. Like, let's talk about some of the unique challenges that you kind of deal with in managing your folks, and maybe give a little advice to some folks that are out there that are in similar situation.
So we have a great position here in Atlanta where we're very well respected.
Indeed.
So we get to pick from a rich pool. There's lots of restaurants in Atlanta, and we've been doing it here more than 10 years. So we harvest from all over. I think that our philosophy of hiring for personality has really served us well. So we believe that if you're a good person, that we can teach you anything we need to teach you in this restaurant, but we can't teach you how to be a good person. So we feel like that's served us very well. And we get people who are just rock stars, and they often get poached from our restaurants to go be whatever they're destined to be in their life, and the restaurant has just been their medium to get there.
How do you feel about that?
It's inevitable. I think some of the best people in the world have worked in restaurants at some point in their lives, and it's just been a pass-through position. But we're lucky to have them. I don't feel like, restaurants are something impermanent, and that's part of the beauty of it. You can come in tomorrow and wait on a whole new restaurant full of people and have a completely different experience and be fulfilled as a restaurateur, but just in a different way. And it's like going on a different blind date every night in the same setting.
I think that's an important lesson for business leaders, managers, and entrepreneurs to know, is that I've always had this rule. I will not hold any of my employees back from a better opportunity. Never. I won't. Like, who am I to say that, to hold you back from something that's going to be better for you and your family? Never done it. Right. Now, the reverse is true as well. I've had employees that come to me and say a couple of times, hey, look, I've got this other thing. And in fact, one in particular, I did not accept her resignation. I said, no, it's not a good look. And here's why. And I educated her, and she worked for me for another like 3 or 4 years. And, then something else came along that was better. And I said, hey, that's awesome. Go get it. And I think that those of us that are in industries where maybe there is some attrition, whether that be sales or the restaurant industry, that we kind of have to embrace that and know that it's part of the game, right? But if we're doing right by people, we're going to have people that stay around. And if they find something that's better, let them go, because that gets out there as well. That's part of your reputation as a manager and as a leader out there. Like, people know if you're the one that's not treating people right. But if you let people go for better opportunities, and you're not beating them over the head or talking bad about them when they leave, that'll come back to you. You'll get more great employees to replace them. Would you agree?
I agree with that, and to your point, there's so many things that we can do with our team members to really let them know where they stand on a daily basis, so that when the time comes for them to go look for something else, we may be a part of that conversation. Maybe they become a different branch, or they go into another aspect of the restaurant. We aggressively just touch base with our people, whether they be behind the bar, in the kitchen, or at the host stand, to make sure that they're getting what they need from us. If they're looking for a job in a kitchen somewhere, but right now they're in the front of the house, well, we have 11 kitchens in this city. If they're a valued employee, let's not lose them. Let's put them in another department. So we have a lot of that cross-pollination. Our corporate departments are filled with people who came from our restaurants. Our director of HR was a restaurant manager. Our vice presidents were all chefs. So it's a matter of knowing where your bench is deep, and being able to pull, say, your accounting department from your restaurants. All of our best people have come from other locations and are now
so there's a lot of promoting from within.
Yeah,
I love that.
For sure.
You said something early on that really resonated with me, and you said you hire for personality.
Yeah.
I think that is so cool. Like, let's talk about that a little bit. So, I think that we have so much data now that we're in the information age, right? If I want to hire somebody, I Google them, and I got this, and then I can find tons of stuff out on anyone, right? And I think sometimes we can overcomplicate it. I like to hire people. I've often said I hire people that are cultural fits, right? So I want to make sure that they have the right, and that means a ton of different things, but that when I bring them into my culture, that they're going to be a good fit for that. Like, that doesn't mean they're a bad person. A good person just means that they're going to fit with what we do in my business. Speak to that piece about how you hire for personality, because I like that.
I think whether it's the culture that you have now or the culture you're looking to propagate,
yes.
those two things can really work. If you are seeing your culture go in the wrong direction, it can be infused with positive energy by just one person who shows up ready to work and smiling,
yes.
and with something positive to say, or with a bag of candy, or in my world it could be anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
An extra pot of coffee. It can be anything. So the ability for you to pick out those personalities, for me, it happens in the first 5 minutes of meeting someone. But for our restaurants, we do a stage, which is like a working interview. It's a second or third interview usually, and that will allow the team, the people on the floor in the restaurant or working behind the bar or at the host stand as the first line of defense, to see how you work and how you smile and how you react to a guest and how you handle adversity.
Walk me through that. How do you do that?
You sign a liability waiver, and then you come on in. We give you a uniform so you look like you belong.
Yeah.
And then we see, because the first gate to getting in is to have you had relative experience, right? So our restaurants are generally high level, so it's not your first restaurant job usually. So you should already have an idea of how to move in a restaurant, an idea of how to make eye contact with a guest and things like that. So we're looking for that. And then, can you let your personality show through those basics? So the basics of service need to kind of already be there. And then, is your personality something that we're vibing with, that we're feeling, and that works with our culture?
God, that's awesome.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
I think that what I want people to recognize is that strategies like that, they translate to whatever industry that you're in, whatever your business is in. I know we used to do something similar. In my business, we'd have people come in for about an hour, and when I was hiring contact center, call center folks, I'd have them come in for an hour, and they would sit on the phone. And I wasn't really about, hey, whether they were successful in it. I really wanted to just understand how they handled some of the failure, some of how they handled that, and just kind of get a real good grasp for what their personality was, and then how they interacted with the rest of my employees.
Yeah. With our environment, it's a lot of times like, are you moving fast enough? Do you have a sense of urgency? Are you in the way?
Yeah.
Or like, if you're in the way, you're going home pretty soon. And if you are moving with us, then we'll keep you longer because you're helping us out.
So I want all of you managers out there to think about that. Think about it. Like, this is a strategy that you can implement. Like, if you're considering some folks, this could be their second, third interview. Bring them in. Let them hang out with your people. When I was hiring a lot of people, I don't hire as many as I used to, but when I was hiring a lot of people, I'd want to bring them in and just let them interact with my folks. They didn't realize that they were being interviewed by my people, but they were. So I'd ask my people, hey, what'd you think? How did that person interact? Because I want to make sure, again, that they're a good cultural fit. And guys, understand that is a huge part of being successful, or setting someone up to be successful in your environment, that they fit your culture. Because, if you've got someone that just maybe learns different or thinks different, or I'll give you an example, a real world example in my world. I like to give people a lot of autonomy, right? I give them I give them the ability to be successful. Like, go do it. Here's the big grand goal. Here's some tools. Let's make it happen. Well, some people can't be successful in that environment. They need, I need to know step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That doesn't make them bad people or good people. It just means that this culture, this environment isn't the best fit for them, right? And so we bring in people that can learn that way. And I think all employers out there need to be a little bit smarter in making sure that they bring in people that are cultural fits. Because I don't know about you, Clarke, but I don't hire anyone intending for them to fail. I bring you in so you can win, right?
it's important that they have the knowledge that they need. So the educational part is huge. It's a huge directive for my department, is to make sure that people have the tools, the weapons they need in the battle. But if it's behavior, we should be able to spot that pretty quickly.
Agree.
And separate those two. Did they have the knowledge they needed and they were behaving badly, or did they just not know? And once we've crossed that bridge with someone enough times, we're pretty sold in one camp or the other, whether they're a cultural fit.
I like it.
Yeah.
So let's take a quick step back. I want to know now you're pretty cemented in your career. You're doing really well. It's a great company that you're with. What advice would you give your former self, your younger self, going into this whole thing? Especially let's have it relate back to management and managing people. Like there's someone out there right now that's like Clarke 1.0, right? They're just getting that opportunity. Like, what do they need to know to set themselves up for success? What would you tell them?
So my biggest strength that I've always kind of fallen back on is patience. I don't ever feel rushed to meet the next threshold. I know it's coming. Like it's almost that I want to be over prepared for this thing. So I've been preparing for my next level sommelier exam for almost 6 years, and I want to pass the first time so bad, but I want to be sure that I'm passing the first time. So I'm patient about it. I don't want to rush it. And that would be a couple of times early on. I made some decisions in my career that felt rushed, and I knew that I was taking a leap of faith, and they didn't pay off for me. So if I was to give my 19-year-old self some advice, I would say be patient in these next few years in that first part of your career. Whereas you might make a little more money right away, it would have been better if I had stayed 2 years at the first place I went instead of jumping around.
That's so hard. Such a valuable lesson, but
so hard, especially in this industry that I find myself in. But after staying the subsequent couple of places for multiple years, and now being at this one for almost 8 now, I feel like I learned that lesson, but I wish I had learned it a little earlier.
Yeah. Great advice, man. Why don't you go back and hop in that time machine and tell younger Ronell that?
Right,
too.
exactly.
Hey guys, listen, if you want a great drink, you want a great meal, you know where to come. Make sure that you come into King and Duke, come to St. Cecilia, what are all the restaurants? Jesus, there's so many.
So JCT was the first. It's like New American, lots of fried chicken over there on the west side.
Yes.
Upper west side, we're calling it these
Voted
days.
best in Atlanta before, I know that.
Really good. Sunday supper kills it over there. And then a little upstairs bar that has just recently become real sexy. And then 246, the little Italian indicator, was the second one. And then we opened the Optimist, which is a behemoth seafood
They kill it over
shack
there.
on the west side. And then King and Duke, where we sit, was fourth. And then St. Cecilia up at the Pinnacle building across from Phipps Mall, which is homemade pasta and a brand new patio, which is really cool. And then after that was Marcel, and then a bunch of Tex-Mex, so Superica and El Felix. Marcel is a fancy steakhouse with a killer wine list. And then Beetle Cat, which is a little oyster bar with cocktail den. And another Tex-Mex, this time in Charlotte. So we're opening another Tex-Mex in Charlotte as well. And then Houston has 3 now. So Houston has State of Grace, which is kind of like if you were to take King and Duke, JCT, and Marcel and mash them into one restaurant, you would get State of Grace. And then La Lucha, which is champagne and oysters and fried chicken. And
Nice.
little Superica concept connected, so Tex-Mex in Houston, which is where Ford is from, so it makes a lot of sense.
So Ford Fry is killing it, man. If you guys get the opportunity to pop into one of these restaurants, do it. You won't regret it. This is where we hang out. We only partner with winners, man. We're winners, so we partner with winners, and we're going to win together. But I got to ask you guys one favor. The next time you pop into one of these Ford Fry restaurants, especially King and Duke, make sure you ask for the business and bourbon drink, because it's going to happen. Maybe. I'm going to try to talk Clarke into it, so we'll see what happens, guys. All right, with that said, thank you all so much for listening to the podcast. If you love it, please give us 5 stars. If you don't, have another drink. And with that, we out. Thank you for listening to the Business and Bourbon Podcast. Please subscribe. And if you like us, give us a 5-star rating. If you don't, have another drink. Maybe you'll feel a little bit differently. If you'd like to check out our videos, you can go to businessandbourbon.tv. That's businessandbourbon.tv. In addition to that, we're currently touring the United States with our Business and Bourbon Live show. It's a fantastic show where we do a whiskey education and we do some Q&A, and it's a great networking event as well. So if you'd like to attend one of our Business and Bourbon Live events, you can go to businessandbourbon.live. Again, that's businessandbourbon.live. Thanks again for listening.